But let's take you now to Awutu Senya West. We understand there are issues with how some of the ballot papers are being distributed. Kofi Eje is with JoyNews. He joins us. Hello, Kofi. What are the details of what happened in Awutu Senya West?
What happened was that the member of parliament for Awutu Senya West, he had information that the issue officer who's supposed to issue the ballot box of the presidential one to electorate or the voters mistakenly eliminated President Adam Akufo-Addo picture and his name and from the paper. So what happened was that instead of Adam Akufo-Addo supposed to be the number one on the ballot paper, former President John Dramani Mahama is now on the first position on the ballot box. This raised concerns to the MPP agent and immediately called the member of parliament for Awutu West, came to the scene. And as I'm speaking to you now, the district EC director, Patient Bado, is having a current meeting with the member of parliament to find a lasting solution for the problem. And two people have voted already without Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo picture and his name on the ballot paper.
So those two people, are they being traced? Is there an opportunity for them to cast their vote again? Obviously, this is not due to any fault of theirs.
These people, they are old people. You see, the woman intention, I don't know whether it's intentional, but young ladies and the young guys, he issued the correct paper to them. But when the old ladies and the old men come, and he take out Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo picture and the MPP from the ballot paper. So now, the paper, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo picture and his name left on the booklet on the EC. Whilst, yeah, I don't know whether you understand me.
Yes, and yeah, we understand you perfectly. And for those of you watching on TV, you can clearly see what Kofi Eje is trying to talk about. For those of you on radio, let me just explain this. You know, there's a booklet with a sheet on it, and you're supposed to tear the sheet once a voter comes round. But what we have seen in our videos is that in two instances, and I can see two ballot sheets there, the paper was torn at the point where Mr. Mahama's photograph begins. And so you have the photograph of the MPP's candidate still in the booklet, and Mr. Mahama appears as number one on the ballot sheet. We understand that the EC officials are looking into this. Mr. George Anda, who is the MP for the area, incumbent, and also the NPP's parliamentary candidate, has raised concerns about this. But Kofi Eje, before you go, the woman who was handling that ballot sheets or distribution of the ballot sheets, is she still at the center?
She's still issuing the presidential papers to the electorate. And the district EC director, he said that she's consulting the regional EC boss and find whether they will, take her from her post or. So as I'm speaking to you now, they are still having conversation between her and her boss, like from the regional EC director, whether they have to allow her to still work or they will take her out from her position.
Kofi Eje, we'll leave it here for now, pending an outcome of that meeting as electoral officers figure a way around this. But let's hear from the MPP's George Anda. This is your election headquarters on JoyNews. Reports we are receiving from the Awutu Senya West constituency is that some people were issued ballot sheets without the photograph and the section of the president, that's President Akufo-Addo, who is the MPP's presidential candidate. We understand that the electoral officer in charge of that polling station is in a meeting trying to figure out what to do. We heard from Kofi Eje that the people who were issued those sheets apparently are old people who may not have been aware of what had happened. And that was his response to the question about whether they were being traced and whether they will be allowed to cast their votes again, and what this really amounts to. We've got our eyes in the Awutu Senya West area, and we'll bring you more on this. We are hoping to hear from George Anda, who is MP for the area.
agent notice the cost, and fortunately, in Kofuna, on ballot papers, almost notice here. It's strange, sir. Ballot paper now almost here. President image and come. In the president image, no aka booklet anymore. But still, EC official no as stamp ballot paper nechi, which is very strange. Well, and Odiama Obison Kotuaba. Because ye promote ye campaigning on vote number 1, no, a very serious asset. The president then appear. Ne number 1 no Mahama. Let us go for better Mahama. It's ya aleti district EC official. So there's two ballots. No, they be registered as false ballot. It calls for us to be extremely vigilant in the ongoing voting process.
Is it
very, very vigilant. These are not normal times, and it's a former desperate. They may be colluding with some irresponsible EC officials, but majority of the EC officials are doing very well. Ways are no. Your agent and Nipana no to abano is through their vigilance in observing. So normally I'm alerting and you buy and say a shame name say 2. It wasn't just one that was reported, as was reported to 2. Until you're sending message to your agency, you're very, very vigilant on this.
You had the incumbent member of Awutu Senya, West George, Anda, earlier spoke in Tree, asking voters to be vigilant, saying this is a serious issue since they had been campaigning on vote number 1. And so if the president's image or the president's section didn't appear on the ballot sheet, people were likely to vote for Mr. Mahama, who had appeared as number 1 on those sheets that were issued. We understand also there's been a shooting incident in the Awutu Senya East constituency. Our man Kofi J is following that story and he will be updating us on the details of that. This is your election headquarters and we are live on Joy 99.7 FM as well. Also on Facebook, on Twitter, you can connect with us using the hashtag Election HQ. So, Daniel, we've just come from the Awutu Senya West and East constituencies. What do we know about these two constituencies in terms of history?
Actually, Bernice, I had marked the Awutu Senya West constituency as one to watch. Why? Because, and I just pulled the trend data for you here on our smart ball. If you look at it, in 2004, the NPP won presidential and parliamentary. 2008-2012, they swung to the NDC. And in 2016, it came back to the NPP. So it's one of the kingmaker constituencies in this election that you want to look at in the central region. The Awutu Senya East constituency is also quite interesting. However, Mavis Hawakumsen, who is the Minister for Special Development Initiatives, has held that seat strongly. I'll just show you what happened over there in 2012 here on our smart wall. Mavis Hawakumsen picking up 31,000 votes there, as against Adam Snow, who's 26,884 votes there. However, a lot of people in that area like to think of Awutu Senya East as similar to Awutu Senya West, and the information we're picking ahead of the election is that there is a lot of agitation to ensure that the NDC picks the seat from the NPP, which is why, which it probably informs some of the incidents that we saw. We did see some violence, remember, where Mavis Hawakumsen fired a pistol. So,
during the registration? During
the registration, the creation of the new voter register. So indeed, George Anda does have a tall order. You know, this is the constituency where Hannah Tete stood. And interestingly, George Anda is going against Gisela Tete Agbotui, who is a sister
of Hannah Tete,
of the former foreign minister. So it's definitely an interesting constituency to watch. And other very important constituencies that you need to watch in the central region. In the central region, of course, you can come to the Cape Coast constituencies. Cape Coast North here. So this was Ebo Batinodro's constituency, Dennis. Remember the Deputy Attorney General? Yes, now I'm still in 2012, so I'll quickly bring you the trend data where you see that Barbara Ashe, who is currently Deputy Minister, picked it from Ebo Batinodro back then in Cape Coast South, in Cape Coast North in 2016. Now, this was created in 2012. At first, it was together with Cape Coast South. Now, look here, the MPP, it looks like the creation of the constituency favored the NDC initially, then swung to the MPP. But when you come down here, you realize that the NDC actually holds more sway in the Cape Coast South constituency, even though the MPP won presidential. Kweku Ricketts-Hagan was Deputy Trade Minister, became Central Region Minister. Of course, there was even a conversation that he actually became Central Region, he was made Central Region Minister, getting to the end of John Mohammed's term to consolidate his position here. And it looks like it's worked for him, even though the MPP picked it up. In 2020, it could be anybody's game. Of course, there are a number of interesting constituencies, and I quickly wanted us to come back to Bernice, the Greater Accra region. And I will quickly come here. Okay, let me go home on the smart wall and come back to the Greater Accra region and look at these three constituencies here in the center. Bernice, if you're coming from the Volta region, you realize that the closer you are to the Volta region, the more supports the NDC supports. Enjoys. So you have Adan, you have Sege, you have Ningo Pram down here and Shai Sudoku down here. Then it turns MPP. But when we come back, because I know we have to go, I'll tell you the story of Dade Kotopon, Lejo Kuku, and Krowo, and why these constituencies are the constituencies to watch in the Greater Accra region.